right, well, welcome back to Exhaust Sports Auto. My name is Kevin, and you are here to witness the 2013 Porsche Boxster S, the 981 model or whatever. So if you are new here, please consider subscribing. And back to the car, 2013 Porsche Boxster. I am doing this review because I feel like there is a legitimate value to be had with this vehicle. It is a pretty special car, and I think Porsche enthusiasts kind of know that. I figured this car deserves a bit more not bad. So, as you can see, naturally aspirated Boxster 6, no 4-cylinder, no turbo, naturally aspirated. This is a vehicle that I feel like needs to be celebrated. However, I will say there is no manual with this particular one. No manual. This actually utilizes the 7-speed dual clutch PDK transmission, and that's fine, kind of, sort of, not really. If it's really supposed to be celebrated, it should have been the manual. Now, another thing to keep in mind with this vehicle, it's not stock. It is, unfortunately, it has like this fab speed exhaust and all that. That's not really something I wanted with this vehicle. I was actually not really aware of that, but man, this Hellcat is really getting up on me. Anyway, I did not want this fab speed exhaust. I really wanted to experience this vehicle stock, but well, here we are, right? This is what we're going to be having to deal with. It's really obnoxious. It drones a lot. There's a lot of cheap components with this vehicle on a very expensive vehicle, and I hate that. I believe there's also an intake on it. Whatever, though. I'm going to try and judge this vehicle as if it were stock as much as I can. But I guess before we get into the driving review, some things to note about the exterior. So this vehicle is new for 2012, 2013 or whatever. That's when this particular vehicle got redesigned. And it was quite a significant change, if I'm going to be honest with you. In at least Porsche's history of changing cars, or at least with the Boxster anyway. A lot of aluminum has been used for the construction of this vehicle. The rigidity of this chassis as a whole has gone up like 40% over the previous generation cars. But to me, what I love most is just the way that this car looks. That is something I really appreciate with this particular vehicle. It no longer looks like a little chintzy toy. It's not like a complete piece of garbage in terms of the way that it looks. It actually has like a very exotic, special, unique look to this vehicle, and I really love that. But anyway, this vehicle, it really does turn heads. It was kind of inspired by the 918 Spyder supercar, and yeah, I kind of see it in certain angles, but most importantly, it doesn't look juvenile. It has an expensive, posh look to it. This car is about as close as normal people are going to get to supercars and stuff, without going into the Ferraris and the Lambos. This is like that great driving vehicle that you can get at an affordable price, because this is a pre-owned vehicle, obviously. And of course, many people despise the new 4-cylinder Boxsters and Caymans. I actually haven't driven them, so I can't judge it. But this, I can see the hatred, because this is a very special motor. It has a very unique characteristic to it, and it sucks when they get rid of great naturally aspirated motors like this. So talking about this car a little bit, it is the Boxster S, so it is actually fitted with the 315 horsepower, 266 pounds-feet of torque, 3.4-liter Boxster 6 engine. It is naturally aspirated, as we just spoke about. It really is a fun motor to really wring out. Never really gets out of control, though. A lot of fun to do that, man. It's I will say it's not the fastest car in the world. If you're expecting this to be some unbelievable messiah of a driving machine, it is and it isn't. It's not blowing me away by any means, but I really appreciate it. It's not particularly fast, I don't think, anyway. A lot of it has to do with this incredible chassis and the fact that it lacks a lot of torque. It's only got 266 pounds-feet of torque, so it's a motor you have to rev out, and I appreciate that. But there's no kickback sensation when you launch this vehicle. There's not a lot of that thrust, but I don't really care about that. That's not what this vehicle is about. But it's just something I want to mention. This vehicle only weighs about 2,900 pounds actually. Like I mentioned, lots of aluminum being used with this particular vehicle, and it's interesting because this vehicle has a very like high sense of like quality, and just there's like this density to it. There's a lot of heft to it, but it only weighs 2,900 pounds. Usually like lightweight vehicles typically tend to feel that way, but this is a super planted vehicle, as we just saw on the highway a little bit there. Really great vehicle in terms of the solidity. Very solid chassis as well. It's a super rewarding driving experience, and you know, I have the top up right now because it's a bit cold, and obviously I want to preserve the audio of this video, but most importantly, this car is super rewarding to drive. Most importantly, that's what this vehicle is all about. This vehicle is kind of like on the cusp of what you can kind of enjoy out on the street. I feel like when you bend corners in this thing, like you feel just how much like capabilities there are with this vehicle. You can do so much more than what you're kind of going to do with this car in a sense. The brakes, like the effortless power, you do have to ring it up, but you know, it is still 315 horsepower. It is still pretty effortless for the most part. But this vehicle, it never gets sideways on you. It's just super easy to drive. You know, this vehicle does utilize that torque vectoring, that Porsche like torque vectoring thing. So it will actively apply the brakes and all that. It does have like that mechanical rear differential. So this vehicle is always in control. Even if you have the stability control turned off all the way, it won't really let you get all sideways. But again, that's kind of to be expected because this is like a precision utensil of a driving experience, if that makes sense. Like this car is not super tail happy or anything like that. It's not the way that this vehicle is calibrated. It's mainly meant to just offer a bunch of just driving confidence, essentially. That's what it's mainly supposed to instill upon you. This transmission, I mean, no, it's not a manual, and honestly, I would have a manual in this vehicle. I wouldn't have it any other way. But it must be said that this PDK really is all that. Like what people have been saying, all that hype, yeah, it's true. It really does upshift and downshift extremely well. Even in the automatic mode, it's really stupendous. Like in the normal mode, it shifts like how I would shift, to be honest with you. It's really awesome. The brakes are really well done in this vehicle. Like there's a decent amount of travel into it, and it doesn't like, you know, shoot you through the windshield at all. And forgive me for like that droniness of the exhaust. It is what it is. I'll probably go through, and if I need to, I'll just do a voiceover on all this. But anyway, it's just the paddle shifters on this thing is a little bit strange. I just wish it had like normal paddle shifters. Like you can actually go up and down with the same paddle, and you have like push it in and out. It's very strange, but whatever, it is what it is. The steering in this thing has been a topic of debate when this thing first came out, like that electric steering rack. I mean, Porsche is not stupid. They have a reputation on the line, and the changes that they make, it's all calibrated. It's all for a reason. Obviously emissions, that gets, you know, stronger and stronger for these everyday vehicles. You know, I don't understand why they're so stringent on these like regular cars, but they just are. And this thing does get like 20 in the city, 30 on the highway. That is super impressive, and with the PDK, that does improve. But the steering in this car, dude, is something I absolutely love. You know, I don't understand what people's complaints are, but like this electric steering rack actually feels like it's hydraulic, to be honest with you. It's a pretty cool feeling, to be honest. It's really fluid. It's on the heavier side, but it's not super heavy, essentially. There's a lot of feedback coming from this vehicle, from all over this vehicle, right? And we're going to see that handling here in a little bit again. This vehicle does utilize a strut-based suspension in the front and rear, actually, which you might be thinking, like, why in such an expensive vehicle do they do that? We're going to see in the interior and, like, the trunk segments and all that, why that kind of is. It's all about the packaging in this vehicle. It's not about saving money, obviously, with this car. That's not what Porsche is about. This car is definitely created to the maximum capabilities of what a vehicle is all about, what a driving vehicle is all about, anyway. It handles so flat and so neutral. It's so easy to place this vehicle on the road. Obviously, it's not a huge vehicle by any means, but there's like this poise and precision that this vehicle has that not many others do. In fact, this is actually like the real ultimate driving machine, to be honest with you. just the way like this chassis is just so solid, and the way that this thing feels, the way it communicates with you, how everything is just supernatural. There is nothing that pisses me off about this car that's out of whack or strange about it. This actually, everything performs as it should. And this vehicle is actually running on 20-inch wheels, which is a bit unfortunate because this vehicle, you know, it is used, has about 42,000 miles on it, and it does creak and rattle like crazy. The door panels, like up top here on the passenger side dash, everything is creaking and rattling insanely, and it does bother me quite a bit. Nothing you can realistically do about it, though. I mean, this vehicle, it's not uncomfortable. It's actually very comfortable, to be honest with you. But the thing about it is this vehicle is still firm. Actually, it rides similar to my BMW 440i. It's like, it's relatively comfortable, but like not really at the same time. Like the bumps, the undulations, like it does a pretty good job of calibrating out like the small bumps, but like the larger bumps, not so much. Yeah, it does tend to, doesn't crash over it, but like, you know, it kind of does. I don't know, it's really hard for me to explain, but due to that firm nature of this ride quality, and obviously like the big wheels, the interior panels in here tends to really not age that well. It really kind of like, you know, shakes up the interior. It is a solid interior space for sure, but like it's just, it doesn't age well due to that ride quality. And I don't believe it's due to cowl shake or whatever. I don't think that's the reason why, because the vehicle is just stupid rigid. So I don't think that's the reason. I just think it's just that ride quality. It's just, it is what it is. Now, due to that insane exhaust, I can't really give you an accurate assessment on how this vehicle is in terms of like, you know, quietness and all that. There's definitely a bit of road noise. I do sense that, but the wind noise, I can't really give you an accurate, you know, sense of that. But this vehicle, I can definitely rack up miles in this thing. I can definitely drive this thing around for a long period of time and not get tired of it. That's the one biggest plus point to this particular vehicle, because it's actually like really comfortable, like the seats and everything like that. This is something that you can actually legitimately drive every day. Now, because of practicality reasons, you probably can't really pull that off, but from a comfort standpoint, you can. Now, we've established that this is, as a driver's car, pretty damn good. Now let's get into the interior and some of those practical aspects. So one of the things I love is there is a ton of space with this vehicle. Like there's just, and that's a lot of the reason why they're using that strut-based suspension in all four corners, because there's a decent amount of trunk space and there is a decent amount of trunk space in the rear. It is a mid-engine vehicle, so that really does aid in that, you know, neutral driving habits that this vehicle has. And why this is really like that obtainable exotic, if you will. There's a lot of exotic things going on, like heavy, like a lot of aluminum and this mid-engine design. Something that, you know, even the 911, right? It's got a rear engine design, so it doesn't have that trunk in the back. Albeit it's not huge or anything like that, but you know, it's there. You can put some longer items back there. But yeah, dude, you would be really surprised when you get in here. Like 6 foot and over people, like, probably would not have huge amounts of issues with this vehicle. Like there's actually a lot of leg room, a lot of headroom. Obviously it's only a 2-seater, so there's no rear seats, but I'm just saying for like the front occupant space, there's a lot of it. The seats, like I mentioned, really comfortable, and most importantly, they've aged really well. There's no real wrinkles or anything like that. The Porsche like leather quality is like pretty much up there with like, you know, Lexus quality essentially. And like I mentioned, the cabin space is really solid as well. It's just due to this ride quality, it does tend to rattle a lot more. The steering wheel is not like super thick like a BMW M steering wheel or anything like that. It's got a nice little, you know, it's got a nice little shape to it. It's a good size and all that. It's got PDK written here in the middle. It's a nice little thing. Like I mentioned, I really like the precision of the steering wheel. It's really well calibrated, good amount of weight to it. Again, feels hydraulic. The gauges in this thing, you know, it's got a nice big fat tachometer in the middle, and the speedometer on the side here, it does go up to like 190 miles per hour on the speedometer anyway. Door panels, you know, it's got nice little, you know, aluminum treatments all around, and it's got a nice heft to the doors here. Obviously it's a coupe, so it's, you know, that's to be expected. You do have automatic one-touch windows for both of these windows, and memory seats as well, all electric seats, of course, for both the passenger and the driver's side. You do have heated and cooled seats. All the climate control is actually separated from the screen. So this model Boxster actually came with a lot more of like creature comforts, if you will. You know, this is a pretty nicely well padded interior, nice leather quality, aluminum trim pieces, you know, all these little features like that. It's all really nice. It all makes it like a very nice livable package. Like I mentioned, you can drive this vehicle every day if you wanted to. It's just practically, you know, there's not a lot of storage space inside. You know, there's nowhere to put your phone. There's no real, you know, armrest space here. Glove box is a decent size. The cup holders are a joke. It's like one of those things that pop out. It's very stupid. They try to be all innovative, but it doesn't really work that well, to be honest. This infotainment and just using everything as a whole, there are a lot of buttons in here and knobs and switches, which I really appreciate. That is something I really love that Porsche does. And again, I actually did review a 2016 Cayenne. All this stuff is pretty similar to that. But the infotainment, not my favorite. It does, you know, react pretty well. There's not a lot of lag or anything with the screen, but it's a little bit perplexing. That's all to use. It's not something that I would like to get used to. It's a little bit on the confusing side, but it is what it is. Again, never really gets sideways, and you know, I really did punch it there, but it's not like super fast or anything. I think 0 to 60 was about like 4.5 seconds, which is cool. But again, though, straight line performance is not what this thing is about. And actually, one last thing, two things actually, before I actually kind of conclude and talk a little bit more about the value proposition of this thing. Visibility of this thing out the front windshield, pretty good. I like the little haunches and all that stuff. If you set the mirrors up, it's not bad, but there is actually a lot of blind spots with this thing. You can't really see much, you know, when you look over your shoulders and all that, kind of a tendency of these coupe convertible things. And the other thing is, there's no backup camera with this. At least I haven't been able to find it. When I put it into reverse, there's no backup camera that pops up. This vehicle could actually use that because it's actually kind of hard to see out of this thing, at least the rear. So I have to really rely on like the mirrors, and I have to keep adjusting them to really see out of it. But, you know, some of the few compromises you make as a, you know, a sports car, right? Also, the front trunk space is actually pretty decent. I feel like you can fit a carry-on in there, but I'm not really too sure. It's not bad. You do get two trunks. If you are concerned about practicality, though, the Cayman is a much better choice. You get like a legit like hatchback amount of space, similar to like a Corvette, and you still get that front trunk. It's actually a really practical car. Still no rear seats, though, but that's useless anyway. Now, kind of wrapping everything up here, the value of this car, I think it has a lot to do with the fact of like this architecture, like this dedicated sports car with a mid-engine design. You're not really going to find too many mid-engine cars. Yeah, there's the new Corvette out and all that, but I've driven the C7 Corvette, and I do feel like the C8 would be like a similar driving experience to the C7, actually. It's just a much more neutral, balanced feel. That's pretty much about it. Like, not as oversteery, I guess. Kind of like this car, to be honest, but with more power. But this vehicle, what does this thing offer? First of all, the prestige of driving around a Porsche, let's be honest. That is pretty tremendous. This is as far up the hierarchy as you're going to get without stepping into Lambo, Ferrari territory, I guess. People do snap their necks and break half a rib cage to turn around and look at this thing. You do get looks and stares. It's a 2013 model, but it's a 2020 to most of the plebeians' eyes, I'll be honest with you. And it actually does look great. I usually hate the Boxsters, but after spending some time with it, it does have a pretty good look. It doesn't look stupid in any way. Even with the soft top, I actually don't mind the way that this thing looks. But I will say, as a driving experience, when you put the top down in this thing, that's when this thing really shines. Not just in looks, but like that open air feel, combined with the way that this thing drives, really makes it that complete package, and really stands out amongst the pack because, you know, used, this thing is still around like 40K because this is the S model, and I would probably go for the S because the 2.7 liter, yeah, I did get a revised, but I feel like this amount of power, this already doesn't, like, you know, baffle me in terms of speed. So this is what I would probably have to spring for. So this is around like 45K, you know, whether you get a certified pre-owned and all that. I would definitely get a warranty with this thing. You know, this is not a car you want to be stuck with out of a warranty. I would get a maintenance package, all that stuff. These are not cars you want to play with. Parts cost a fortune with these cars. Now, there's a lot of cars you can get for like around 40, 45 G's. Like, You can get some used vehicles, obviously, like you can get like a certified pre-owned like RCF Lexus, you can get like Camaros, Corvettes, you can get like brand new Camaros, and that is actually one of my most favorite vehicles. Now, you might be looking at this vehicle, and this car is not for everyone. Honestly, like as much as I love this car, I don't think it really speaks to me all that much, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad vehicle and it's not for you, because this vehicle does a lot of great things, like I mentioned. This neutral, balanced feel that pretty much no other car can give you, this car does that. But there are some other great choices, you know, like you might be looking at this like it's like some type of posh Miata. It's not. This is a far more heavy feeling car, far more of a substantial feeling car. The Miata is like much lighter steering. It's a much more of a joyful experience, and I love that car, dude. It is really an amazing driving tool, and it costs way less money than this. Like around 25 grand will get you a great Miata, brand new with the warranty, all that stuff, and like a perfect manual transmission. So the reasons why I were to recommend this car is because this is as close as you're going to get to an exotic. It's got exotic build quality, like the aluminum construction, the mid-engine, of course. It's a Porsche, so it actually has pretty decent resale value, and that's another great thing about these vehicles. These are highly coveted cars, but to be fair, you can also get like a brand new Corvette. Honestly, I think this is a little bit more special than the C7 Corvette. I actually think the Camaro is a better value, and that's hard, you know, to get like a brand new Camaro with the stick, with an amazing Tremec 6-speed versus this. I don't know, dude. That's a toss-up for me. I think I might go Camaro or Miata, to be honest. Those are like two of my most favorite vehicles, but it ain't no Porsche, you know. The Miatas, the Camaros, those are Chevys and Mazdas. Those are the vehicles of the plebes. You know what I'm saying? This is not. This is $1 million when you pull up in this thing, and that's a huge advantage. Again, I really wish I could try out the manual. This PDK is cool and all, but like I think the manual would really make this a perfect driving experience, to be honest with you. But as a whole, though, as a used car proposition, with like the new 4-cylinder Boxster being out right now, they are talking about going back to a 6-cylinder, like a Boxster 6 like this, but that's going to be a fortune. Not many people can afford that. This is still very expensive, but this is more so in the range of what people can afford. So it's something to certainly check out. I think that this actually does bring a lot to the table. But with that pretty much concludes my driving review on the 2013 981 Boxster. If you're an owner of this vehicle, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know how it's been holding up for you. But with that, thank you again for watching. I appreciate your support. Take care and goodbye.